Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive.
Hello.
We've got a really interesting set of materials today. You sent us a great stack of sources, notes, excerpts, thoughts, all centered around, well, a classic, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
That's right. And our job today, our mission, is pretty focused, but should be really insightful. We're going deep, but only using the material you actually shared.
Right.
We're going to pull out the key insights, the core principles Carnegie suggests for, building real connections, fostering trust, and yeah, influencing people effectively, just based on these specific notes and excerpts.
Nothing from outside, just what's here.
Exactly.
And honestly, in today's world, I mean, we're always connected, but understanding each other, navigating all these different viewpoints, it can feel, well, challenging sometimes, polarized even.
Mm-hmm.
So figuring out how to actually connect, how to communicate with respect, it feels really essential, doesn't it? Not just nice to have.
Absolutely crucial. And this source material, it really offers some foundational ideas for doing just that. It taps into something timeless, I think.
And the way you've laid out the material for us, it sort of follows the book's own path, right? Starts with fundamentals, then getting people to like you, winning them over, even leadership.
Yeah, it gives us a really clear roadmap. We can just follow the structure laid out in the notes you sent. From handling people to likability to persuasion to leadership principles.
Perfect. Let's dive right in then. The material starts by setting the scene, talking about influence, but really at its core, it's about human connection.
It is. It kicks off with Carnegie's sort of central idea, according to these notes. People are driven mainly by their own needs, and maybe even more powerfully by their emotions.
It sounds almost too simple, but that's the bedrock, isn't it? We're
Yeah.
not just logic machines. We feel things first.
That's at the core message here. And if that's true, if our emotions and needs are primary drivers, then trying to interact effectively, well, it can't just be about shoving fact down someone's throat or winning an argument with logic.
No.
The source says success really hinges on being able to connect in a way that acknowledges and respects those core emotions. That's the starting point for encouraging any kind of positive action or interaction.
So it's less about the what you say and more about the how, specifically how you make the other person feel.
Precisely. The source really emphasizes this. Influence isn't just transmitting information, it's mostly about the emotional impact you have. Think about it, a conversation where you felt valued versus one where you felt dismissed. Which one makes you more open later?
Yeah, no contest there. That feeling really sticks with you.
Mhm.
And the source drives this point home. It says people just naturally respond better, more positively, when they feel genuinely valued, when their input is recognized, when they feel, well, important.
It seems like a fundamental human craving, doesn't it? To feel seen, heard, that you matter somehow.
It really does.
And when someone provides that feeling, genuinely sees you, hears you, values your presence, the material suggests they become way more receptive, cooperative, just more positive towards you.
So the source material, it's diving into the psychology behind that, aiming for concrete techniques.
Exactly. It's framed as understanding why people react certain ways and then using that understanding to engage better, not just randomly, but with intention.
But importantly, it's framed not as manipulation, but as alignment, aligning with how people actually are.
That's the sense I get from these notes. It's about building real connections by working with human nature, not against it, understanding the emotional landscape.
Okay, that makes sense as a foundation.
And that foundation leads us straight into the first big section outlined in your notes. Part 1, Fundamental Techniques in Handling People.
All right, part 1. And this first principle, wow, it feels like it goes against, well, a lot of gut reactions people have.
Yeah, principle number 1, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. The material is pretty direct about why these things just don't work, why they're ineffective for actually changing behavior or building relationships.
Okay, so why not? What does the source say criticism actually does to someone?
Well, it's almost like a reflex reaction. The source explains that when you criticize someone, boom, their defenses shoot right up, it's automatic.
Like a shield goes up.
Exactly. Their whole focus instantly shifts. It's no longer about, okay, what's this feedback? It's about, how do I protect myself? Self-preservation kicks in. They're not listening to understand anymore. They're busy building their defense or just shutting down.
So the chance for actual communication, for getting your point across about the issue, it just evaporates.
Pretty much, lost in the static of defensiveness. And beyond just blocking communication, the source points out that criticism makes people feel disrespected, belittled maybe.
Which naturally leads to negative feelings.
Right. Really strong ones, according to this: anger, resentment, feeling attacked. And those feelings, they don't exactly inspire positive change, do they? They actively corrode the relationship. You might feel better for a second getting something off your chest, but the source suggests the long-term cost in trust and goodwill is really high.
So the key insight isn't just don't criticize. It's why not. It triggers defensiveness, breeds resentment, and ultimately sabotages your goal of influence or improvement.
Yes, precisely. It hinders progress because the other person basically stops listening productively.
So what's the alternative suggested here if you do need to address an issue?
The alternative, hinted at here, is about trying to understand their situation first. And when giving feedback, framing it constructively, more like suggestions for improvement, coming from a place of wanting to help rather than just harsh judgment.
Shifting from you did this wrong to maybe we could try this.
Kind of like that, from diagnosing failure to proposing a better way forward. It changes the whole feel.
That makes a huge difference in how it lands. Okay, principle number 2 in this section feels like the flip side, the positive approach.
It really is. Principle number 2, give honest and sincere appreciation. If criticism is like acid, the source positions appreciation as, well, maybe the cement. It's highlighted as a really powerful way to strengthen connections.
And it connects back to that core need we talked about, the desire to feel valued.
Directly. The material argues that genuine appreciation is one of the most effective routes to winning people's, affection and loyalty. It speaks right to that deep human need to feel important, to be recognized for who we are or what we do. Most people are practically starving for real recognition.
So, okay, it makes someone feel good.
Yeah.
But what's the practical effect? Does it lead to anything tangible?
Oh, yeah. The source is quite clear. It increases cooperation. It enhances the connection. When people feel genuinely seen and valued for their contributions, big or small, they're just much more inclined to want to engage positively with you, to help out, to collaborate. It builds up this kind of emotional bank account.
Goodwill.
Exactly. Goodwill. And the source is very specific about the type of appreciation that works. It's not about just tossing out generic compliments, is it?
No, this seems really key. The material stresses the importance of being specific.
That's a crucial takeaway here. Specificity. The source contrasts a vague, hey, good job, with concrete examples like, I really value the extra effort you put in to finish that report on time, or that specific point you made about streamlining the workflow was really insightful because it tackled X.
Details make it feel real, earned.
Yes, it shows you were actually paying attention, that you genuinely noticed and valued that particular effort or quality. Generic praise can feel hollow, like you're just saying it, maybe even like flattery.
Which can backfire.
Right, but specific, honest appreciation, that lands as real validation. The source suggests it builds connection and motivates people to keep doing good work.
So specificity equals sincerity in this context. Key insight. Be specific and honest. Avoid empty flattery.
Got it. It's the difference between, checking a box and actually connecting. Which leads us nicely into the third fundamental technique here. This one requires a bit of a perspective shift.
Principle number 3. Arouse in the other person an eager want. Okay, this one, it sounds a little bit persuasive, maybe slightly manipulative.
It is persuasive, but the source frames it as understanding motivation, not manipulation. It requires, as the material explains, a pretty fundamental shift in how you approach things. You have to stop focusing only on what you want or what you need.
So you need to get out of your own head and try to understand their perspective, their motivations.
That's exactly it. The method described here is about making a genuine effort to figure out, what does the other person want? What are their goals, their worries, their desires, their interests?
Okay, and once you have a sense of that, how do you use that information?
The core idea, according to the source, is to then show them how your idea or your request or your proposal actually helps them achieve their goals. You frame it entirely in terms of their interests, their needs, their benefits.
So it's like saying, here's how my suggestion solves your problem, or here's how doing this helps you get what you want.
Bingo. That's the key insight. You're not just pushing your agenda blindly. You're showing the clear link between what you're proposing and something they already value or desire.
So people are much more likely to cooperate or say yes if they see what's in it for them.
Overwhelmingly so, according to this material. If they feel they stand to gain something meaningful, avoid a hassle, achieve a goal, get recognition, they're far more likely to be on board. It's about aligning your request with their existing motivation, not inventing motivation, but tapping into what's already there.
It's finding that overlap between your needs and theirs, and then really highlighting their side of that overlap.
That's a great way to put it.
These three fundamentals: avoid criticism, give sincere appreciation, appeal to their wants. They really set a powerful foundation for positive interactions, don't they?
They really do. They pivot away from confrontation or just focusing on yourself towards understanding and building positive connections, which naturally leads right into the next section your notes cover, part 2. 6 ways to make people like you, building on that foundation.
Right. Moving from basic handling to actually building rapport and, well, likability. The first principle here feels like the most basic starting point for connecting with anyone.
Principle number 1. Become genuinely interested in other people. The source material points out something pretty fundamental about us humans. We generally love to talk about ourselves, our experiences, our interests, our problems. It's a favorite topic for most people.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So the key here isn't just acting interested. It's about cultivating genuine curiosity.
That's exactly what the source stresses. It has to be genuine interest. People have pretty good detectors for fakeness, don't they?
You can usually tell.
So how do you show that genuine interest? The material says, ask questions. Ask about their lives, their passions, their concerns, what they've been up to. And then this is critical, listen actively to the answers.
So it's not just asking, it's the follow-through, the listening, that act of focusing attention on them. It must be incredibly powerful for building trust.
It really is. The result, according to the source, is that you make the other person feel heard, valued, interesting even. The key insight here is that active listening driven by real curiosity is magnetic. When people feel you're truly interested in them, who they are, what they think, they naturally feel drawn to you, it builds connection almost automatically.
That makes total sense. When someone gives you their undivided attention and seems truly curious, you feel, well, seen, appreciated. Okay, principle number 2 in this part seems almost deceptively simple.
It does, doesn't it? Principle 2, smile. Just smile. The material talks about the simple yet really profound power of a genuine smile. Seems basic maybe, but the effect is immediate.
What does a smile convey instantly? According to the source, what's the message?
It makes you look approachable, friendly, open. It's like a nonverbal welcome sign. It lowers people's guards, suggests you're not a threat.
And it changes the whole atmosphere.
Yeah, the source notes that a sincere smile creates this positive, welcoming vibe. It encourages the other person to be more open, to engage more positively. It sets a completely different initial tone than, say, a frown or just a blank expression.
So the key insight is that a smile is more than just a facial expression. It's a powerful communication tool. It signals warmth, trust, friendliness, making connection easier. It's like an invitation.
A very effective invitation. Okay, moving on. Principle number 3 builds right on that idea of acknowledging the other person's individual worth.
Remember and use a person's name. I love how the source material describes this. He says a person's name is the sweetest and most important sound in any language to that person.
That phrasing really captures it, doesn't it? Our name is so tied up with our identity, our sense of self. And the source explains why remembering and using it is so effective. It signals that you see them as an individual, not just a face in the crowd. It says, I recognize you.
It makes the interaction instantly more personal.
Exactly, more meaningful. And the nugget here, according to the source, isn't just remembering the name, but using it naturally, frequently during the conversation. Doing that reinforces the respect, deepens the connection, and consistently makes the other person feel seen and important. It's a simple but powerful personalization technique.
Yeah, you definitely notice when someone uses your name. It kind of snaps you to attention, makes you feel directly addressed. Okay, principle 4 loops back nicely to the first one in this section about genuine interest.
It does. Principle 4. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. This really hammers home that point again. People love talking about themselves. The material is quite emphatic here. Being a good listener isn't just helpful. It's presented as essential for building and sustaining relationships.
What does the source say makes someone a good listener? Any specific techniques mentioned?
It mentions asking open-ended questions. Questions that encourage more than just a yes or no answer. Questions that invite them to share stories, thoughts, feelings.
So how did that make you feel instead of were you sad?
Exactly. And crucially, it's about showing that genuine interest while they're talking. Your body language, eye contact, maybe little verbal cues like uh-huh or wow, follow-up questions. It all signals that you're truly engaged, not just waiting for your turn to speak.
It's active engagement, not just passive reception. Trying to understand the person, not just the words, and the result of listening like that.
The source claims people feel a much deeper connection to you when you truly listen. When you give them that space to share and feel heard without judgment or interruption, they feel understood and, again, valued.
So the key insight is that good listening is maybe one of the highest forms of respect you can show someone in conversation. Feeling heard makes people feel valued, and that builds trust. It's almost like a gift you give them.
That's a great way to put it, a conversational gift, and it flows directly into the next principle.
Principle 5, talk in terms of the other person's interests. Okay, this seems like the practical application of being interested and listening well.
It is. You gather information through genuine interest in listening, and then you use it to connect more effectively. The method is simple. Talk about things that matter to them. If they love hiking, ask about their last trip. If they're passionate about a cause, discuss that. If they mention a challenge at work, follow up on it.
And the benefit of doing that, focusing on their world?
It shows you're invested. It shows you actually heard them and remembered what's important in their life, not just yours. You're not just waiting to steer the conversation back to yourself. The source says this encourages mutual respect and leads to much deeper engagement.
The key insight seems to be that conversations become way more engaging and the bond stronger when you show you care about their interests. It makes the interaction feel less transactional, more relational.
Yeah, it's about meeting them on their turf, so to speak.
Yeah.
And the final principle in this section, number 6, brings us right back to that core idea from the introduction, making people feel significant.
Principle 6, make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. The source presents this as maybe one of the simplest but also most powerful techniques.
It taps directly into that fundamental human drive we identified at the start, that deep-seated need to feel valued, recognized, important for who we are and what we contribute.
But there's a huge caveat here, right? The source is very insistent on one aspect.
Absolutely critical. Carnegie, as presented here, draws a very sharp line. This must be genuine appreciation. It cannot be empty flattery. Flattery is seen as insincere praise, often used just to curry favor or manipulate. Genuine appreciation comes from truly seeing and valuing something specific in the other person.
And why is sincerity so absolutely vital?
Because, the source warns, people are usually very good at spotting insincerity. If your attempt to make someone feel important comes across as fake, as just saying the right words without meaning them, the whole thing blows up in your face.
It actually damages trust.
Completely. It breeds cynicism and resentment. It makes you seem manipulative, so the effort totally backfires.
Okay, so the key insight is non-negotiable sincerity. Be real in your compliments, your recognition, your interest. Avoid flattery like the plague because it destroys the very trust you're trying to build.
Authenticity is everything here. It's the foundation. These 6 principles for making people like you, they really all flow from genuine curiosity, positive intention, and a real commitment to making the other person feel seen, heard, and valued.
And when you consistently practice these things, the source suggests you naturally become more likable. You create a positive energy around yourself.
That's the idea. They're about building bridges by focusing on them, and getting good at building that rapport, that likability, sets the stage perfectly for the next challenge, influencing someone's thinking or getting them to agree with you. Which takes us to part 3, how to win people to your way of thinking.
All right, part 3. And the very first principle here is, well, it's pretty provocative. It challenges how most of us instinctively handle disagreements.
It really does. Principle 1. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. That's strong advice. The source material, reflecting Carnegie's view, basically says arguing is almost always a losing proposition if your goal is to actually change someone's mind or maintain a good relationship.
Why? What's the inherent problem with arguing, even if you believe you're right?
The source explains that even if you somehow win the argument, you prove your point, you get the last word. The cost is almost always damage to the relationship. You create resentment, defensiveness, hard feelings. You might win the factual battle but lose the cooperation war. People just don't like being proven wrong, especially in a confrontational way.
Okay, so if arguing is generally counterproductive for influence, what does the source suggest instead when you encounter disagreement?
The approach recommended is to focus hard on finding common ground. Actively look for points where you do agree, where your interests align, where you can genuinely acknowledge some validity in their perspective, even if you disagree overall. Start there. Build bridges, not walls.
And if you just can't avoid the point of disagreement,
Then the advice is to really try to understand their perspective first. Ask questions, listen deeply, and critically refuse to escalate. Don't meet aggression with more aggression. Stay calm. Keep the focus on understanding and maybe on a shared goal if there is one.
So the key insight here is really practical. Avoid the argument itself. Seek common ground. Manage the interaction calmly. This is far more effective for actually resolving differences and keeping the relationship intact than trying to score points or win by force. It's about collaboration over combat.
Exactly. It reframes the whole encounter. Principle 2 builds right on this idea of handling differing views carefully.
Show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say, "You're wrong." Wow. The source is pretty blunt about the negative impact of directly telling someone, "You're wrong."
Yeah, it's like hitting an emergency brake on the conversation. It immediately puts them on the defensive. Why? Because you're directly attacking their judgment, their reasoning, maybe even their intelligence or values. It triggers that same self-protection instinct we saw with criticism.
And once they're defensive, the door to influence slams shut.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So the approach the source recommends is to always handle conversations with respect for their opinions, even if you strongly disagree. Maybe use phrases like, "That's an interesting perspective, I see it a bit differently," or "Help me understand how you arrived at that view," rather than a flat-out, "Nope, you're wrong."
How does that respectful approach change the interaction?
It keeps the conversation open. It creates a space where real dialogue might actually happen. When someone doesn't feel personally attacked or dismissed out of hand, they're much more likely to actually listen to your perspective and maybe, just maybe, consider it. You haven't forced them into a corner. So the key insight is, acknowledge their viewpoint respectfully first. Don't start with, "You're wrong." Gently guide towards other possibilities or common ground. It's a much softer and usually more effective approach.
That takes some discipline, some humility,
Hmm.
which connects perfectly to principle number 3. This one is about what you should do when you realize you're the one who's mistaken.
If you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. The source really highlights the surprising strength in admitting your own errors. It's presented as a way to actually build credibility and trust, not diminish it.
Why does admitting a mistake have such a positive effect? That seems counterintuitive sometimes.
Well, according to the material, it shows honesty. It shows accountability, self-awareness. In a context where people often try to dodge blame or cover things up, someone who just says, "Oops, my mistake," or "You know what, you were right about that," stands out. They seem trustworthy, mature.
And it diffuses tension right away.
Instantly. There's nothing left to argue about if you've already admitted the point. It takes all the fight out of the situation. And interestingly, the source suggests that by showing that honesty and vulnerability, you actually make people more willing to listen to you respectfully on other things later. You've shown you value truth over ego. So the key takeaway, don't hide mistakes. Admit them quickly, sincerely, emphatically. It boosts your integrity and makes others respect you more, making them more open to you down the line.
It's about building trust through accountability. Okay, principle 4 brings us back to setting the initial tone, much like the smile principle did earlier.
Begin in a friendly way. The source keeps coming back to the power of friendliness, doesn't it? It lays the groundwork for cooperation. It makes people just fundamentally more willing to listen and engage positively with you from the get-go.
And how does the source suggest you do this? What does friendly way mean in practice?
It's about your whole demeanor right from the start. A warm greeting, maybe a genuine compliment if appropriate. A relaxed, open posture, that smile we talked about. It's about projecting warmth and goodwill from the first second.
And this friendly opening sets the tone for everything that follows.
Absolutely. The source argues that starting positively makes it much harder for the interaction to immediately spiral into conflict or misunderstanding. You've built a little cushion of goodwill right at the beginning. It makes the other person want to have a positive interaction with you. Key insight. Friendliness isn't just fluff. It's a strategic tool for influence. Start warm, build rapport, and you pave the way for a better outcome.
Makes sense. Now, principle number 5 introduces a very specific conversational tactic.
Get the other person saying yes, yes, immediately. Okay, this one, as described in the source, is quite strategic. The idea is to start the conversation by asking questions or making statements that the other person will naturally, easily agree with. Simple things, undeniable things.
Why do that? What's the purpose of getting these initial agreements?
Two things, really. First, it sets a cooperative tone right away. You're immediately establishing common ground, areas of agreement. You're both nodding along. It creates a positive, affirmative rhythm.
And the second thing is it's psychological.
Yes, the source points to a psychological effect. Once someone starts saying yes, even to small things, they become psychologically more inclined to keep saying yes. It creates a kind of momentum of agreement. It makes them more receptive to your later points, the ones that might be more complex or where you initially differed. It's guiding, not tricking, highlighting shared understanding first. So the key insight, start with easy agreements. Get that yes momentum going. It increases engagement and makes the other person more likely to be receptive when you get to the main point. It fosters cooperation through conversational flow.
These principles for winning people over, they really emphasize empathy, respect, honesty, and creating that positive cooperative feeling. It's consistently about guiding gently, not forcing or confronting.
Exactly. The focus is entirely on understanding and interaction, not on debate tactics or overpowering the other person. And that same philosophy carries right into the final section outlined in your source material. This part deals specifically with leadership or guiding others, especially when you need to help someone change without causing resentment.
Right. Part 4. Be a leader. How to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment.
Now, it's important to note here, based only on the source material you provided for us to analyze today, this section is presented a bit differently. The material introduces the topic leadership, guiding change, but then it just lists the principles. It doesn't give us the detailed explanations for each one like we had in the earlier parts.
Okay, so the source tells us what the principles are in this leadership section,
Yeah.
but not the detailed why or how behind each specific point.
That's right. It sets the context, leadership, facilitating change respectfully, and then provides the list of 9 principles, but without the elaboration we saw before.
Understood. So sticking strictly to what's in front of us, let's just list those 9 leadership principles as they appear in the source.
Okay, here's the list from the material.
Begin with praise and honest appreciation.
Okay,
Number 2, call attention to people's mistakes indirectly.
indirectly. Interesting.
Number 3, talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person.
Ah, linking back to admitting fault.
It seems like it. Number 4, ask questions instead of giving direct orders.
Empowering, maybe.
Number 5, let the other person save face.
Dignity, respect.
Yeah. Number 6, praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement.
Reinforcing positive steps.
Number 7, give the other person a fine reputation to live up to.
Setting positive expectations.
Number 8, use encouragement. Make the fault seem easy to correct.
Building confidence.
And finally, number 9, make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest.
Connecting back to that eager want. Okay, that's the full list as provided. And even without the deep dives on each one in this specific source, you can immediately see how they connect back to everything we've already discussed, can't you? The themes are so consistent.
Oh, absolutely. It's crystal clear. Begin with praise and honest appreciation. That's straight out of part 1 and 2. Call attention to mistakes indirectly and talk about your own mistakes first. Those sound exactly like strategies to soften criticism and avoid defensiveness, pulling directly from the principles about avoiding criticism and admitting your own faults.
Yeah, and ask questions instead of orders. Let them save face. Use encouragement. That all resonates strongly with respecting the individual, empowering them, guiding instead of dictating. Ideas we touched on in part 3 about respectful influence.
Precisely. And praise improvement, give a fine reputation. Those tie right back into the power of appreciation and making people feel important from parts 1 and 2. And number 9, make them happy about doing it. That sounds exactly like finding that eager want, showing them the benefit.
It's really striking how these core threads, respect, appreciation, understanding their view, minimizing negativity, focusing on them, are woven throughout the entire structure presented here, just applied in slightly different ways for different situations, like leadership.
They seem to be variations on a central theme, a fundamental approach to human interaction based on understanding motivation and fostering connection. Which brings us nicely to the final section outlined in your notes, connecting the dots, synthesis and application.
Right. Stepping back to see the big picture. How do all these pieces fit together? The source mentions they reinforce each other.
Yeah, it emphasizes they're not just standalone tricks. They work together, creating a kind of positive system. Like, think about it. Being genuinely interested, part 2, makes you a better listener. Part 2. Good listening helps you understand their interests and opinions. Part 1, part 3. Showing appreciation, parts 1, 2, 4, builds trust. And that trust makes people way more open when you need to, say, offer feedback indirectly or persuade them gently. parts 3, 4.
It's like a virtuous cycle. Each positive action makes the next one easier and more effective.
Exactly. And the source material really stresses that this whole approach isn't just about learning social tricks. It's framed more deeply as cultivating a philosophy of compassionate and empathetic communication.
A philosophy that's much bigger than just techniques. It implies a whole way of looking at people and interacting.
It really does. It suggests a fundamental shift in orientation. And the core idea, as the source brings it all together, seems to be about genuinely understanding and respecting what others need and feel, making them feel truly valued, and then guiding or influencing in a way that aims for mutual benefit. It's not about you winning and them losing. It's about finding win-win outcomes built on respect.
And that focus on mutual benefit, on these deep human needs for appreciation, importance, respect, that's why the source describes these principles as timeless, isn't it?
That's exactly the point the material makes. Their enduring power comes from tapping into fundamental human nature. Technology changes, society shifts, but our basic psychological wiring, the desire to feel valued, heard, respected, that stays pretty constant. So these principles offer a framework for navigating relationships that doesn't really go out of style.
And the source ties applying these principles consistently to real-world results. What kind of outcomes does it suggest are achievable?
It talks about things like genuinely improving personal relationships, deeper friendships, stronger family ties, becoming a more effective leader, someone who inspires loyalty and cooperation, not just compliance through fear, and achieving your own goals more easily, not by forcing things, but by building this network of people who want to help you because they feel respected and valued by you. It's influence through connection.
So let's bring this right back to you listening now. Why should these principles, developed decades ago, matter in your life today?
Because the core challenges of getting along with people, communicating effectively, building trust, they haven't gone anywhere. In fact, you could argue that in our world, so connected digitally, so diverse, sometimes so divided, the skills of empathetic communication, respectful disagreement, positive motivation, and building genuine trust are maybe more vital than ever before. Applying these principles, as laid out in your source material, offers a time-tested approach to navigating those modern complexities and building stronger, more positive connections everywhere.
It feels like it's about fostering real, authentic connection in a world that can sometimes feel pretty superficial or disconnected, and doing it by respecting the fundamentals of what makes us human.
A really powerful framework, I think.
Definitely. This deep dive, just based on the source notes you provided on Carnegie's principles, has really illuminated how focusing on sincerity, on empathy, on respect, how that forms the absolute foundation for effective human interaction and influence. We've walked through the fundamentals of handling people, the ways to become someone others genuinely connect with, the strategies for respectfully winning people to your way of thinking, and we've seen the list of principles for leading change without creating backlash.
And that consistent theme just keeps echoing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When you shift your focus away from just yourself and genuinely try to understand and value the other person, when you lead with respect and sincere appreciation, positive outcomes just become so much more probable. It really feels like it moves beyond just technique into a whole way of engaging with others.
Absolutely. Which brings us to a final thought. Something for you to consider, stemming directly from this material. The source emphasizes again and again the crucial role of sincerity. These principles work, it argues, only when applied with genuine interest and honest appreciation. So here's the question. If you start trying to apply these methods, and maybe at first it feels a little unnatural, calculated, like you're following steps rather than feeling it, how do you actually cultivate that deep, authentic sincerity the source insists upon? Is it something you just have to possess from the start for these principles to land properly? Or could sincerity actually be something that develops through the practice itself? As you consistently act with respect and appreciation, as you see the positive results, maybe the genuine feeling follows the action.
That's a fascinating question, isn't it? Where does the feeling come from? Does the action precede the feeling? Or must the feeling precede the action for it to be authentic? It really pushes on that line between learned technique and an embodied way of being, something definitely worth thinking about as you reflect on these ideas.
Indeed. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material on influence and human connection. We hope exploring these principles has sparked some useful insights for your own interactions.
Maybe just pick one principle this week. See what happens when you consciously try to apply it. Even a small shift can make a difference.
Great suggestion. Until next time, keep connecting and keep understanding.